You already know what it is. It's the Horns Down podcast with your host, Chris with a K, Chris Griffin. I'm back, guys. I know it's been a while. It's been a minute. You see me on these guys' shows, but hey, we're back.
Wait, who are you?
Anyways, so hey, look, tonight is a good night. Look, we just talked football on Ty's channel for about an hour, 15, hour 20, around the table sports. Definitely check this out. But you know what? I'm gonna let these guys do their intros, and then we're gonna get right to it. What the topic of this video is about? This is a video we've been talking about for some time now, and pretty excited to jump into this. So we're not here for a long time tonight because we don't want to, bore you guys. But hey, this is really interesting stuff. So yeah, with that being said, Jay, go first. Then next Ty.
Of course, your boy Jay Smith, Unfair Sports. Search for me on YouTube. Talking OU football, Colorado football, and college football in general. So pull up. Thanks for having me, Chris. I'm excited about this topic. This has been a fun one. This is a fun debate that we're going to have in this conversation.
Yeah, you can find me at Around the Table Sports. I just do constant college football content, and yeah, love to have you over there.
So,
it's a little bit of a problem.
So, hey, tonight what we're talking about is the direction of NIL. Left or right. So let's do a little bit of house cleaning things, a little couple of house rules, whatever. Let's just drop some stuff out there, okay? We don't care what your political affiliation is. That's not what we're trying to accomplish here. We're not trying to figure that out. We're not trying to get you to lean a certain way.
Also, it's a different conversation economically as opposed to socially, right? Like it's
exactly. What we're talking about is NIL, okay? This is a safe zone, except for Texas A&M fans. Okay, we will bash you guys. Yeah. We will definitely.
Wow.
Sorry about that.
But with that being said, I'm going to open it up here. I'm going to say there is a hearing that is going to be held tomorrow, March 29th. The NCAA and I believe our court system, our judicial system, the government. Yeah, they're all going to be involved in this to basically see how are we going to expand or how are we going to subtract from what NIL is now. From what I talked to Jay about, from what I've talked to Ty about, it's literally this right here is black and white, people. The left, they wanted to expand. They want these players to be able to unionize. They want these players to be able to have player unions and to be able to get even more money and be able to make this name, image, and likeness, I mean, truly what it is and what NIL stands for. The right, they want to subtract from it. They want to bring uniformity to NIL. And they want to make it basically a blanket system all across the nation for every sport, every athlete, every student athlete across the nation. So with that being said, now that we have all that out, let's start with Ty. Let's go to you. What are your thoughts on this whole thing?
Can I start this with a question to both of you? Because this is something I don't get. So the left on this, and in terms of like how we've broken this down, they want to unionize this, right? And that makes perfect sense to me. But the right, they want more uniformity. My question is, wouldn't by definition and inherently, if we did unionization across the board for college football, wouldn't that inherently bring more like union? Like, you get what I'm trying to ask here?
Yeah.
Like,
would it be uniform by being a union? Yeah.
Yes.
I think on with that, and it's just weird the way that everyone's trying to word it. I think the fun part of the conversation that me and Chris had in talking through this is that some bills that were written in different states were about 300 some pages, some were 30 pages, some were 3, and they all said the same thing. Exact same dang thing, but some with way more words. And just to complicate and convolute things, it's kind of ridiculous to me that we even have multiple. Why is the NCAA so lazy that they can't just put this out there themselves and just figure it out? I guess the biggest problem for them is they understand that a class action lawsuit is coming down the line very, very soon against them, because they did probably the most unthinkable thing we've ever seen in our judicial system. They got all 9 justices on the Supreme Court to agree on something.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell was that? How do you do that? And it's all because of the incompetence of the NCAA. Everyone's starting to talk about it more. This has become a big polarizing topic, and as Chris kind of made mention, is it's more of a left and right thing when it comes to how you want to approach it. But Ty, you're straight up, you're correct. Both of them want it to be basically uniform in some capacity.
Yeah.
Why can't the NCAA do that themselves?
That's my biggest question here.
But Ty, here's the thing, and I think I made this point to Jay, is that it's funny because now the NCAA is basically running to their big brother. That's the analogy. They're running to their big brother and saying, we need help to figure this out because this is now getting out of hand. And I say that, and just let me get this out, and then I'm gonna let you go, Ty. But here's something that I sent to Jay, I think this a few days ago. California first NIL law enacted. I'm just gonna read this verbatim. California was the first state to enact NIL legislation with the Fair Pay to Play Act in 2019, which triggered a domino effect in other states. The state may go further with go further with the College Athlete Protection Act introduced in January 2023. The bill would require state schools to share a percentage of revenue with athletes in programs that bring in double what they spend on athletic scholarships. So essentially, you're dipping into these to more money of the college. The college is now having to pay the player directly on top of what they would get. Now that's my interpretation of what that law is saying. But I just think that when you look at it, that's the reason why I say it's so black and white and it's left and right, because you're thinking to yourself, damn, if the left wins, then this is going to be crazy, because that's what California is leaning towards the direction of going, as far as you pay the players directly. We want you to give them this huge stipend. You could give it to them over a month, a monthly basis. You can give it to them at the end of the season, whatever the case may be. And they're also talking about giving them money, for even graduating as well. So, I mean, there's a lot of money at stake in this, because now you're dipping into these schools, a paycheck.
Revenue pie, baby.
Yeah, you're dipping into their wallets now and telling them, no, you're going to front money on top of what they could potentially go out and make externally.
Yeah, and to me, that opens up a whole nother thing of questions. And the interesting thing is we talk about what California is trying to enact, and then in that article you sent me, we have what Oklahoma is trying to enact. And it gets right back to the point of, at some point we're going to have uniformity, or else some state will have an inherent advantage, which we already have unfortunately seen. Yeah. The first year NIL was a thing, there were certain states, such as Florida, that were not able to participate in the same manner as other states, through no fault of the institution, through the fault of state legislation, trying to be, ironically, proactive.
Yeah.
So that's...
no. And then on the flip side of that, Texas is able to, I'm not talking about UT, I'm talking about Texas as a whole. One thing that Texas is able to do, and we've all three of us have talked about this, one thing Texas is able to do that nobody talks about is A&M, UT, SMU, TCU. They can go to you and say, hey, look, that's great. You'll be making $3 million out there in California, but you would see more of that money whenever taxes roll around. You're going to pay no state income tax. Come here and ball out. And so, there are advantages and disadvantages to this that you just can't get. And I mean, the thing about it is that if some of these players were old enough, to have their credit right or whatnot. You can argue for Florida with like homestead exemptions and everything. They could go out there and get that, but that's not what these 18 to 23-year-old kids are thinking about. You know, they're thinking about Flash Dash, the Rari, the Richard Mille, all the rest of that. They're thinking about all the flash and the materialistic things. Yeah, exactly. So, and it's funny that we even talk about that, because the average NIL deal that a lot of these kids are getting is not these big nationwide national brand. It's mostly local deals that they're getting.
Yeah, no. And this is the same thing we see in a lot of other industries, right? I mean, it's your 1% that are really dominating the headlines. It's just like this. And then, Jay, I'm sorry. I just feel like I always reference that scene and It's Always Sunny. It's like I've been dying to talk about the mail. I've been waiting to talk about the mail. But it's just like the NFL. We know 1% of the NFL. I mean, I say I know like the average NFL fan, because I'm so into college football, it's really taken away from how much NFL I watch. The average NFL fan knows just a small percentage of the league, right? Those are your household names. But it's like the iceberg effect, where that's what you see, but the vast majority of the iceberg is actually underwater, right? So there's a bunch of household names in the NFL, but the average NFL career is like 3 years. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so it's just like you operate under the assumption because, I've heard Aaron Rodgers and I've talked about Aaron Rodgers for the past 10 years, that there are a league full of Aaron Rodgers, right? And I forget the name of the fallacy, but it's like, maybe it's the fallacy of like equation, where because one thing is one certain way, you equate it to everything. And I think that's very indicative of like NIL. We think that because Bryce Young got this $1 million deal that everybody is going to be rolling in the Benjamins, but it's like, no, Bryce, Caleb Williams, guys like that, they're eating. Mm-hmm. But your average college football player is relying on your local barbecue joint to have them on the podcast for a featured spot.
Or tweet out a picture of a plate that they're eating there to promote them coming out. Just as you mentioned, Todd, there's a statistic. I was watching Bomani Jones' Game Theory on HBO, and he pointed out, this was actually this past Friday's episode, and 95% of students with getting NIL deals are like $1,000 or less. Mm-hmm. So your 5% is getting the big deals. The Jaden Rashada deal that never went through because somebody got too excited about themselves.
And that was a ridiculous deal.
Deals, you see that to the 1%. But and I'm gonna be honest here. I think this is the one thing that baffles me about the fanship when it comes to NIL and everybody at this point. When it comes to NIL, they think that everyone should get a fair amount. Everybody should get the exact same amount. And it's like, but capitalism, the way our country is built on capitalism, is you go off market value. One person's valued more, then you pay the person that's valued more money, which is okay, because that's exactly how it is when you go to the pros. And everybody's rebuttals I've heard is, but it's going to ruin the locker room. The NFL's been doing it for years. And to be honest, if you've been in college and you stayed in dorms, there's rich kids in there. There's kids in there that drive fancy cars. I knew kids that drove BMWs and Lexuses, way better cars than I had no car in college. But guess what? A lot of them, as they got to know each other and became a brotherhood, they took care of each other. Eric King did it perfectly. He was getting NIL deals for all his teammates at Miami. You know, he was working on that stuff. So their brotherhood, that stuff's not going to ruin a locker room unless you're just jealous. Because remember, NFL players, their kids also go play college football. They're pulling up in Jags and stuff like that also. So it's no different. Yeah. So to me, it's like all of the 5% that's getting all the money, it's going to happen no matter what. So it's one of those, I think that's one argument I hope no one tries to go with, because it makes no sense. We're in a country that's what we do. We pay, if I may, based upon their talent.
I think the argument is there, right? But I don't think that the correct implementation of the argument is saying, it will ruin a locker room. I think in a lot of instances when the argument is brought up that we should have a salary cap or some sort of like equitable amount, it's in the argument of parity as opposed to like locker room. Now, you know how I feel about the argument of parity. I don't think that it really exists as many people want it to in college football, but that to me is usually where the argument comes from, because I agree with you. If you tell me, oh, the NIL deal is going to ruin the locker room, I'm going to be like, but there's going to be a disproportionate NIL deal anyway, so it doesn't matter, right? Like that, it doesn't matter. And I don't know that I buy the parity argument, but Jay, I have a question for you. Would you be more fine if there was like a salary cap, right? Just like the NFL, where each team got X amount of dollars per year, and then it's up to you.
So
right? How you disperse.
If we did a salary cap based upon
I know we're getting
schools,
off topic here now.
No, you're good.
If we do a salary cap based upon the schools, kind of like the California bill, where the schools are actually paying the players, I'm all for that, because there's a limit of how much money they actually can bring in. It's not like they're going to be able to go back to the TV rights people and beg for more money, because they're going to look at them and like, hey man, we have projections we have to hit too in order to even afford this deal. So on that, I'm totally for NIL, no cap.
I agree.
When it comes to that part, because that's basically endorsement deals. There's no cap on endorsement.
Name,
deals.
image, and likeness is different. Yeah,
exactly. It's all about your marketability. I mean, think about certain players. Unfortunately, I've seen some linemen that are very marketable, like Jason Kelsey. That dude's marketable, but a lot of linemen aren't, or a lot of kickers aren't. It's like certain players are and some aren't. Kirk Cousins is not very marketable. Aaron Rodgers is, because he's polarizing. It's just kind of how the game goes.
It's an ebb and flow. It's a personality. Honestly, you have to have a personality. You can't teach that. Like some people.
First of all, some people go into media and some people go into construction.
Yeah,
and it's not no knock. Somebody can own a construction company, make a ton of money, just like the person in media. But the difference is the personality. Some people are better behind the scenes than they are at forefront.
And then there's me just bumper carring through life.
You're just everywhere. We're just
bumper carring through life. It is what it is.
But I would say that for me, one of I think the most important thing about this topic is just trying to understand the construct of it. Look, the NIL, and the reason why I say this hearing tomorrow is important, because it's the first step of many towards some type of, I'm not even going to say final, but some type of temporary order that we all will be under in this NIL era. And it is a byproduct of the knee-jerk reaction that the NCAA had when, Ty, go ahead and say it, Justice came out?
Justice Kavanaugh.
Exactly.
Out of all people, Justice Kavanaugh put a target on the NCAA and said your antitrust law structure fails. It fails any sort of review. It would not pass any sort of review if you were any other company in the world, and you cannot not pay your workers on the theory that you don't have to pay your workers. And when he said that, I was like, oh, wow.
And so essentially with that right there, go back to the California law and you say, okay, this is why the NCAA is trying to get the help of the government and hoping that they go with the right approach, simply because if this California law is enacted, everybody else is going to copycat it, and you will see the floodgates open with that. And the reason why I say that is because, look, Ty, we talked about it time and time again on your pod. There's a bunch of schools out there that are highly, highly touted research institutions. With some of these schools, if you take away football and the sports, they're known for other things. Missouri, what is Missouri known for? Missouri's known for the journalism school. They're known for the J school or whatnot. So my point with all of this is that this football money, this basketball money, this Final Four and playoffs and all the rest of that, TV revenue, this is just icing on the cake. This is just a way to say, hey, this is why inflation inside on our campus is justified, because we make all this money. We're buying you all these fancy buildings and fancy things that we're constructing around campus to bring you here and make you want to go here and to attract even more people. So it's justified. Now you're telling these schools, hey, some of that money that you've been generating because of these players, you're going to have to pay that back to them. And the thing, like I told Jay, you got to think about it. There are 80 scholarship players or whatnot on the team, and that's not even considering the walk-ons or whatnot that may even count into this. And you got 115 people to account for, not only your staff, your coaching staff, but these players. So $25,000 adds up over time, no matter how many. Once you get to 80 and above, and you're paying that many players, that's a lot of money.
No, I agree. And it's what's fascinating to me in this entire conversation too around this is that the player 108 is the one that everyone's so concerned about, as if that player, depending on the school they're at, is actually going to see the field. Like a lot of these kids, once you get to a certain number, they're just there as fillers. They're there for practice. They're there to be a part of the team. They're part of the camaraderie, but they're not expected to play. To me, those players, if they don't get an NIL deal, that's okay. They got an education. Since the thing that everyone says is so valuable about playing football at the collegiate level is the education, some players are there just for the education, and that's fine. That's something that we shouldn't minimize for them. But a lot of your top-tier players, I promise you, if they could go to the NFL fresh out of high school, they will go to the NFL right out of high school. They're only going to college because they have no choice. It's not because they want to. They have zero choice. The NFL won't take them until they're 3 years removed from high school. So for me, when it comes to your top-tier players, I want them to get paid, because if they're the ones that's anticipated to be the best, then there's a good chance if they don't go pro, they have nothing else to fall back on. At the same time, a lot of these schools, depending on, and this has been studies that have been done on this, is that they limit the degrees that these players can even go after, because they don't want it to mess with like practice time or training time. And some degrees students want to go do. Like, if it baffled me that Josh Dobbs, I guess he was good enough at quarterback who was a quarterback at Tennessee, they let him study aerospace engineering. Like, and most kids don't get that option unless you're a quarterback. You don't get that option. If you're a wide receiver, unless you're like the elite of the elite, they're gonna tell you, nah, man, you can't do that. You need to do physical education so we can make sure you're here for training and practice.
We'll do basket weaving.
Well, there was a recruit here recently Bama lost, and I mean, I'm not saying this is the only reason Bama lost him. They lost him to Texas defensive line coach Bo Davis. And I mean, I don't have to say anything else other than their defensive line coach is Bo Davis. He is a dude on the recruiting front.
He's a dude on the front, yeah.
Yeah, and the recruit we lost, this kid is brilliant, man. Comes from a brilliant family, and he wants to go into the medical field. And I really hope that Texas allows him. I'm not saying any speculation or any reason to believe they're not. I think that was a big reason as to why he went there, because Texas is, I mean, look, let's be honest. A lot of their programs are just so highly rated at that institution. Jacob, you know exactly who I'm talking about. Finkley. It was Finkley. Brilliant kid, super, super talented. Very excited to see him continue developing. But I hope, because kids like him, man, they're that talented. If he wants to go into the medical field, he's got the ability to do so.
Yeah, and a lot of schools don't give them that option. And if you got the option or the institution that's made for it, that's another thing to consider for a lot of these kids. And so that's always been my argument back when it comes to the degree is free thing, because they're not getting it for free. They're working. That's a job. It's hours upon hours of work. I mean, hell, we've got guys practicing on Saturdays. Teams are having Saturday practices and stuff. So this is a full-time job, and they're not allowed to get jobs outside of this. Well, now with NIL, they can go do appearances and make a little money here and there. Leveraging the name on the jersey on the front, they can take that in now and go make a couple of coins. But
now, Jay, I'm a segue into something that we talked about that I know was kind of on your mind, and you were pretty passionate about it, at least talking about it. It's funny how we're trying to it's funny how our fight right now with the fight that we're watching, I'll put it like that, over NIL is, do we expand or do we subtract, right? When Jay is talking, Jay is saying, hey, in my opinion, the conversation should be, how do we help these guys protect their money? How do we help these guys? How do we educate them and make them financially literate? And there are tons of ways that we possibly can do that, but we're stuck on this issue here.
There's two things when it comes to that. There's two things come to that, and I'm glad you brought that up. Me and Ty have talked about this before too, on one of his streams a while back. But twofold. Number one,
this is gonna get
all
me
of
hot.
These coaches, huh?
This is gonna get me hot. I can feel it. Go ahead.
You know what it is. Two things. Number one, these coaches project themselves, and this is what they say to us. It's not what we believe about them or what we even think about them. They tell us this. They tell us they are leaders of men. This is what they do. They're leaders of men. So to me, if you're a leader of man, the first thing you should be doing is making sure that these players are taken care of on the accounting front. You should make sure their taxes are good, they're financially good, because you're a leader of men. That's the thing that usually a parent, a father, a mother, someone teaches their kids how to do properly, right? So if you're a leader of man, that's a situation, that's what you need to be doing. The second thing is, this is a controlled environment. This is the perfect environment to learn and be taught about financial literacy. Me and Chris talked about this before. And I've had this conversation with other parents and stuff. So many people always say, you'll see it on Facebook posts and Twitter posts, man, I wish they would have taught me financial literacy instead of trigonometry in high school. He. And it's like, sure, they probably did teach you that. You probably just didn't absorb it at the time. Why? Because at that moment, it didn't matter. Either you didn't have a job and it was just like, meh, information about money, cool. I need to go figure out how to make money. So you didn't really care much about it. Or you had a job, but at the same time, your parents were doing your taxes for you. So you didn't really care about it at that point either. So those things happen. You've learned about this stuff. You just don't realize how much of it you actually learned. And it didn't stick because at the time, it just wasn't the right time for you to absorb said information. I think about that all the time when it comes to civics class and how stuff happens in Congress, just, at the congressional level, and people are asking questions about how this stuff works. It's like, yeah, you learn in civics class, but at that time, it wasn't the time for you to absorb it for that person. So to me, in a controlled environment, Mike Golick Jr. said this, and he was like, this is a controlled environment, and you can truly teach financial literacy to these players. And I promise you, if the coaches take that mantra of them being leaders of men, we will have less players that go pro and then go broke than we've ever had in history.
And I'll say this and then I'll let Ty go. Like I told you the other night, Jay, in our conversation, hey, all those motivational speakers that you bring in, you could bring in a CPA, an accountant, or you could have some bridge program where you have people interning with these CPAs and other accountants in these other smaller businesses or whatever, where they're learning those things. They're learning how to protect their money, but you have it already instituted, like I even mentioned Saban with, the counseling, that he has for his players for the mental health stuff or whatnot. You're not having to, this is all about money. And it's funny that you use the word control because it's all about money and it's all about control. And these institutions and all the rest of that, they're not worried about that, but also they don't want to spend any more of their money. That's excess funds that they feel can go to something better, right? But at the same time, you're hiring one person or one firm to come in and educate at least one time out of the year, tax season, right? But that's just my spiel about it. But Ty, I'll let you go.
Yeah, and so here's the only thing I will push back on. Because I do think financial literacy needs to be taught in schools. Because I can promise you this. I did not have one lick of financial literacy. You get the civic stuff because those are required by every state. I don't believe financial literacy is required by one state. And I think you'd be hard pressed to find it in any high schools. I just text my fiance who's a teacher, and I don't believe Denton teaches it. I know for a fact Gainesville didn't teach it. And when I was subbing, I never saw that as a part of any of the core curriculum at Denton ISD, which is a 5A place. And I was subbing there a little bit. I could be wrong, but I know from talking to professors and teachers, financial literacy is something they absolutely feel like they have failed their students in because we did not have classes in that in high school. We did not have.
We
those
had
classes.
Some in Oklahoma. I'll say that. I know some schools that did teach it. I took one, and I'm not saying everybody does, but my point is, I don't know if it's something that's going to be absorbed at the time because I know people.
I do agree with that. No doubt.
Completely forgot.
Yeah,
they're like, we didn't do that. I'm like, and mention the class. They're like, oh shoot, we did have that class, didn't we? I'm like, yes.
Yeah,
we had certain ones like home ec. Home ec's one. I learned how to write checks in home ec. And I learned that in middle school, luckily I remembered and just kept that in my mind, but it's just not, but you're right.
I had
not
to have
everybody.
my parents
it is
teach
something
me all
we
that
should
stuff
do.
because
it's just
and learn it.
I think the only thing that that bothers me about it is the simple fact that you have so many models out there. Look at the NBA with their G League Ignite. When they get those high school players, that's a requirement of the whole deal. Like, yeah, we're gonna give you $500,000, but you have to take financial literacy classes as well. You have to take those you have to take classes like that and actually do that stuff. Yeah.
So Kchris, let me jump in on that. So every sports league has a rookie symposium that teaches that exact same thing too. And guess what happens? Most of them just jerk around.
It's on the person.
That's exactly what I would have done.
It's on the person. But
that's exactly what I would have done.
Is that you have the model, and the fact of the matter is that this is no longer just a collegiate sport. I mean, this is pretty much a form now.
If I could jump in here, I must admit I might be wrong here, Jay, because my fiance just texted me from the other room. They changed the curriculum this year to teach some financial literacy starting in the 4th grade now. So I could be 100% wrong here on that. Maybe it was a Gainesville thing.
I'm from Tulsa. So I'm from Tulsa, and so some of the schools in Tulsa, I know that Nathan Hale, and I went to Booker T. Nathan Hale, and I know that they had classes available for that.
Gotcha.
So but you're right. That's what it is. Some of them do start early. I do actually. Now I think about it, I do remember learning some stuff in the middle school as well. But the problem is, it's some of the stuff just the rookie symposium stuff. Most of these players get in trouble at the rookie symposium for doing dumb stuff because now they're rich. But it's hard to tell somebody that's rich what they're supposed to do and not to do with their money. I think the biggest thing is, though, as far as a college goes, it's the perfect learning ground to teach financial literacy for these athletes. It's perfect.
It's the perfect ground for a lot of things to happen that haven't happened, and that's a failure at the very top. That's a failure at the very top, which and I don't know any of those people there. I'm not gonna say they do a bad job or whatever. They've gotten us this far, right? But the thing about it is that there's a failure at top somewhere, and I mean the fingers pointing at the NCAA. Because what it feels like in this in a roundabout way is that they made a knee-jerk reaction to Justice Kavanaugh's opinion, decision, or whatever you want to call it. And they are now doing a reverse, and they're running right back to Congress, right back to our judicial system for the same exact
It's so stupid.
We're not even starting at step one. We're still at ground zero with this.
Yeah. It's so stupid.
And
I'm intrigued how these hearings are going to go.
Just to look. So I'm a family attorney, divorce attorney, or whatnot, right? So obviously you filed a petition, and then in between, a lot of people think, oh well, yeah, I'm gonna get my decree. No, that's way down the line. There's a temporary order phase that could last 3 months, 6 months, 2 years, 3 years, could last 6 years, depending on the case, until the judge or somebody says I'm done.
And in a case like this, it could be for a while. And that's why I say whatever is decided at this hearing, whatever is decided after this hearing, these are all going to be temporary orders until we find some type of construct that fits the I guess the paradigm that we are in. And one thing I would definitely say is that I don't know if it's going to take, quote unquote, the one commissioner that could come in and just say, oh yeah, this is what's supposed to happen, because it's so different, and legislation across the nation has made it different, because you have some where, like Oklahoma's law, in my opinion, is fluff. A bunch of it is just defining exactly what a student athlete is, what an NIL deal is, what is NIL in general, all the rest of that stuff. So it's one of those things. And then you have these 3-pagers or these 4-pagers out there, and like you said, Jay, they say all the same thing.
It's the same thing.
They have different rules about it, but that's simply because of the legislation that exists in each state that differs from each other. Because literally, the law that I practice here in Oklahoma is essentially the same down there in Texas, but they just have different local rules.
Yeah.
And so they have different spins on it. And when you look at these words in these contracts, every word is a living, breathing organism. It has a meaning of its own. And so, and so, I mean, that's my biggest problem with it, is the fact that there's a failure at the top, an obvious, apparent failure at the top. And they bagged themselves in a corner that right now it's looking more like a hole that they just can't get out of.
I'm curious on this is the 29th is when this hearing is going down, which is tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm curious to really what exactly they have to say. Like, that's what I want to know. Like,
I think it's going to be more here. I don't even think decisions are going to be made. I think it's going to be more like a town hall, to be honest with you. I think it's going to be an open forum Q&A type situation where they're asking the same questions, the same things that we're talking about. That's what they're going to be doing. So nothing is going to be nothing is going to be finalized at this hearing tomorrow.
Y'all want to see me yell at politicians? I might be doing that. I might just be screaming.
I looked at the and this is what makes this as bad and makes me feel like this is going to go absolutely nowhere as expected. I watched those TikTok hearings.
Oh my God, I was just laughing
awful.
At that. Does it access your Wi-Fi, sir? Yeah. If you connect it to the Wi-Fi,
it's a bunch of old people that are completely disconnected to how the world actually works, trying to ask questions about something that they truly have no idea how it works, and it's gonna be just a cluster. It's gonna be so bad.
In my opinion, what it's going to take is, and I'm gonna circle back to it, and we can make this the last point because I know we said we weren't gonna be on here a long time, but.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. So but the thing about it is that it's going to take one of these states to actually do something that is just groundbreaking, that is earth shattering. And California looks like to me that it's going to be that state.
I'm not surprised by that though. Didn't they have some earlier bills? They've been pushing this for a minute.
Yeah. And so if I feel like if California is successful in what they want to do, where they're making these schools pay these players directly, I mean, come on, man. Come on, man.
Jacob says we didn't touch any live wires. Meanwhile, he doesn't realize I'm that really dumb mosquito in the pack of mosquitoes that's the first one to the zap trap. You know what I mean? Like they see that thing turn on and they're like, yeah. Let me go.
Let me go a little bit more into detail. And they said that, hey, look, pay would be capped at $25,000 per academic year, with more to be dispersed after completing a degree.
No, we don't do that to people today. You turn 18, you get a job, you get a record deal, you can get paid all your money up front. Why do we have to restrict players? The dumbest thing to me about this, and Ty, you're right. It's the parody paradox of the parody that is actually parody. There's no parody when it comes to that. If you want parody, you need to make Nick Saban retire after so many years. You got to force Kirby Smart to retire after so many years. Bob Stoops has to retire after so many years. That's how you achieve parity. You will never achieve parity until specific coaches are gone, because these players go to the coaches. They go to the coaches. They're the ones attracting these players. The money may start to trickle one or two players to leave and go different places here or there, but guess who's still going to keep winning? The coaches that are the best at their jobs. Period. I don't care about the thought that, everybody's going to follow the teams with the most money. No, they're not. Miami is losing recruits, and they definitely got the most money. They're the ones spending the most. They're losing recruits. Why? Because it makes no sense to think that you're going to beat Nick Saban by outbuying him. You're not. You're not.
A&M didn't have a top 5 class last year. They got more money than God.
Texas and Texas A&M got all the money, and Texas A&M just lost all of their players. All of them. All of those 5 stars. Those 5 stars from that record-breaking class they had, all the 5 stars are gone except for one.
Tell them why, Jay. Why is that? Tell them why. It's because this NIL money is funny money as compared to this NFL money.
Thank you. There you go.
Development is king.
It's like crypto, man. Yeah. Come on, folks.
Development is and will remain king. NIL will be a factor. but development is king. That's
King.
just the name of the game, right? It's why I, as an outside source, look at y'all's team, Oklahoma, and I say, no, I buy stock into this staff. Why? I can look at what they did at Clemson. I can look at what they've done at previous institutions, and I can see the development. I'm not saying that the Texas staff is going to win a national. I have been arguing in this Texas staff because I look at Bo Davis. I see development. I look at Kyle Flood. I damn sure see development. My goodness, that guy right there. I mean, if Bill Bedenbaugh didn't exist, we'd be talking about him whenever we're talking about the best offensive line coach. But Bill Bedenbaugh exists, and you just see the boom. Here's a great example. How much money does Bill Bedenbaugh coached players just sign for in the NFL? Isn't it something like $52
million?
There are some colleges that don't have that many players making that much in the NFL. Y'all have it at that position. Boom. Development is king. Now, why y'all don't get 5 stars there? I will never understand.
I think that's why.
Maybe it is.
The particular ones that they pick are the ones they know are going to go to the league and end up getting drafted and play.
Just seems like there would have been a 5-star that he was like, that's my guy. And it seems like the 5-star would have looked at Bedenbaugh and been like, that's my guy.
And I agree. And that's the thing that baffles me too. But you bring in it
hasn't mattered.
Creed Humphreys, who was a 3-star.
It hasn't mattered. So it hasn't mattered.
It's that eyeball that they've done a great job of seeing and developing. So no, you're right.
Yeah, development's king.
Commandment's king. So,
well, with that all being said, this isn't just a one-time thing. We're gonna have conversations. Not sure when the next one's gonna be, but this was fun, y'all. We're definitely gonna have another one because it's an intelligent conversation that needs to be had about this stuff. Because
now, this was a nicer vibe than that shirt you took out. That was.
Oh yeah, I didn't.
That was.
Oh, here he goes. I gotta go.
That was Jay. Oh, he's gone. I was gonna have him back me up. That was obscene. I need Justice Wendell Holmes right here, right now. I don't know obscenity. I can't define it, but I know it when I see it, and that was obscene.
Ty, you'll be wearing that shirt around.
I will not be wearing
that time. You'll be wearing
that shirt. I will not be wearing that shirt.
But Ty, go ahead. Tell everybody where they can find you at again.
Yeah, you can find me at Around the Table Sports. Constant college football content. Content hasn't been as consistent, and I might take a few days off. I've had some family stuff go down, but other than that, y'all know what it's at.
All right, look, guys, this is the Horns Down Podcast. Thank y'all for definitely showing up, showing out. Hey, leave a like button, share, retweet, do all those different things or whatever, because this is a conversation that we definitely have been talking about behind closed doors for a while, and there's more videos to come, especially after whatever happens tomorrow.
God,
tomorrow. So
you know how betrayed I feel right now, Hank. I was going to ask, where's the shirt? I thought we had really grown, Hank. I thought we had something.
Hey, Hank is on the good side, man. He's on the good side.
Hey, he can be on whatever side, but I thought there's a little quid pro quo here. You know what I mean? Apparently not.
I think next time, man, for sure, we should definitely try to talk about some teams and how this affects. But let's just wait until tomorrow and see exactly what's going down. So
yeah, for sure.
But with that being said, guys, we are out of